It's kind of early in the morning, but I just had a big coffee and I'm well caffeinated, and I feel like talking about my five favorite books that I read last month. Excuse me. Um, well, if you've seen my previous video, I kind of hyperfixated on reading, and I read a, an absolute insane amount of books, which is almost at the point of being a bit embarrassing. In the month of May, and yeah, I thought it would be a bit too many books to review in one video, so I decided to take my top five books that I read last month and make them into their own video. And so, without further ado, let's start. We got The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea by Yukio Mishima in this, well, what would be a very gorgeous vintage classics edition if it wasn't so damn dirty. But it's, I think this happens when it's like stored wherever they keep it, so it doesn't come off. But anyway, this was a very nice book. This was my third Mishima, on my second. I'm not sure. I read Confessions of a Mask, which I would like to reread soon, and I think this is one of his most famous works, really. And he's a very, very interesting character in the literary world. And yeah, so this is about a boy who's grown up with his single mother, and his mother kind of starts a romantic relationship with a sailor, and they have some quite interesting relationships. The boy, whose name is Noboru, kind of like spies on his mom Fusako, like through a hole in the wall, and he watches her undress and have sex with the Ryuji, the sailor guy, but it's never mentioned as like a pervy thing or like a sexual thing per se, but it's definitely a fucked up relationship that he has to his mother, which maybe is influenced by him not really having a father figure yet, and he takes this man Ryuji, and he kind of yeah, he makes him into this like kind of image of like this hero and this sailor, and but Ryuji wants to retire from being a sailor, so he kind of has this worship and this hate for this character, so he kind of idolizes him, but he says like he wants to murder him also. It's, if you haven't noticed, it's a bit of a dark themed book. And yeah, it had this. This might be typical for Mishima. I don't really know yet, but it reminded me of a lot of other different Japanese literature, and also a bit of like the few Camus writings that I read. There's like this. It's like a detachment. Like the character is completely detached and by himself, very very similar to the protagonist in The Stranger. And there's also like this sense of urgency and this sense of impending doom, maybe even. So needing something to be done, or like being pressured by something. um he also very frequently describes air and light, so it's a very atmospheric atmosphere. It's very atmospheric, and it kind of, in a way, like this whole relationship triangle between, like, spying on his mom in a sexual way and wanting to kill his father. That kind of reminds me of that. It reminds me a bit of Oedipus. So that's not sure if that was intended, but I think it probably was. There are some quite striking similarities there. And yeah, it's a very very nice and worthwhile novella. I really like the ending. You know, I read a lot of books recently where I really enjoyed the contents of the story, and then the ending kind of not ruined it for me, but like kind of took away from the story in my opinion. And this book, in my opinion, does the ending really well, and I think you should read it. Next up, I got Wutschrift by Pia Klemp. This is the second book I had to read for uni this month, and I read through it quite fast. It was quite easy to read. I did not realize that Penguin also published books in German, but I guess they're such a big publisher, they also publish under different labels. But anyway, this is kind of a feminist book about rage and anger and the patriarchy. It's a very very interesting book. That being said, I don't think it's been translated, and I don't think it ever will be, because it really touches on very specific, very contemporary political topics in Germany. So I don't think it really would make sense to translate. But yeah, it goes into all these issues. It kind of, to be honest, it kind of jumps quite fast between, you know, like economical issues and the refugee crisis and COVID-19 and all those things related to that. But that, in my opinion, didn't take away from the book. I think it's a very very interesting book, especially if you're a dude like me. I think reading something like this can really widen your horizon, you know, because there may be some issues for women in this world that we as men will never even realize, you know. And yeah, if you understand German, I think this is a really really cool book to read. And the only criticism I really have, it's not even really a criticism, but it's gonna be outdated like really really soon, because it's talking about all these political events from like 2022. So but yeah, that doesn't take away from the book really, in my opinion. So a very very good read. We got Die Klasse, The Class by Hermann Ungar. This guy I have an absolute fascination with. So this man was also one of the like Czech German authors, you know, that lived in Prague. Like a lot of Jewish men who were like of German origin, like famously Franz Kafka, of course, and some others. And I finally, you know, I like to read stuff from that scene and that time of history, being between like the early 1900s and the 1920s, or the 1930s maybe even. And I finally found a name for a group, which made me very happy. It's just called the Group 1925. And I think it's almost completely forgotten, but it was I think it was only male authors who were exactly like from, you know, like from Prague and parts of Germany. Most of them Jewish, I think. And I looked through that list, and it's I don't have it here right now, but it made me very happy, because I really really enjoyed this style of writing. And Bertolt Brecht was on there, and Hermann Ungar was on there, and I don't think any of the other people I ever even heard of. So got a big supply of things to read. So let's get into the novel. It's you know, I would like to judge the novel by itself, but there are so many similarities to Kafka that I just kind of have to keep talking about him. Because the main character is called Josef, which is also the name of the character in the Trial by Kafka. And I called this in his other novel I called anti-Kafka, and I think it's kind of the same here again. It's the main character is kind of like this passive man that is like feels like he's unable to act, and all these things are happening to him. People are taking advantage of him, and he just has like crippling social anxiety and so much paranoia. And he's a school teacher, and he teaches some teenage boys, and he is absolutely scared of them. And he feels like they want to like oppress him and make fun of him, and he thinks they want to destroy him. He uses the word vernichten, which is like destroy or annihilate. So not even they don't even want to kill him. Like they want to completely like annihilate him. But that's just really what he thinks. And if you read the book, the way it described, it doesn't even seem like they dislike him at all. It's they're teenage boys, but they're doing boy things, but it never really seems like they even like dislike him even a little bit. And also he constantly thinks his wife, who's pregnant, is gonna cheat on him. So he kind of, this is like the first time he starts to act in the novel is he asks her to put on like some long dresses, so no other men are gonna look at her. So he becomes an oppressor himself, and his wife complies out of love for him because she really really loves him, and that's also something he constantly questions. And she tells him, and he just does not believe her, and he just believes that everybody's evil and everybody hates him basically. And then his wife is gonna give birth to his son, and he is convinced his wife is gonna die in childbirth. He is like 100% sure, like he's gonna lose his wife, he's gonna lose his child. And his wife, spoiler alert I guess, does not die in childbirth. She survives, and the baby is healthy, and he is like terrified, he seems terrified. And what I found very interesting is that it constantly talks about this pregnant woman and this baby, but the word child is never mentioned until very late in the book. It's constantly addressed in a different way, like as a creature or just by its name, and it really dehumanizes this little baby, and that really contributes to his feeling of anxiety and paranoia. You also have this character called Uncle Bobek, who's like this super like gluttonous large man who's also very large in personality and very he invites himself over, and he just like ravages through like a big meal by himself, and he drinks and he drinks and he drinks, and then he says they're partying even though everybody is just like kind of giving to him, and none of the other people are really engaging with him, and he sees it as like them spending time together. And yeah, there are a couple like twists and turns, and yeah, basically to kind of spoil the ending, if you don't wanna hear this, then probably skip the next part. But one of his pupils, he wants to kind of like catch one of his pupils going to a brothel because he knows they're going there, and he feels like he's gonna regain his power over the kids if he like knows something about them, and then he catches him, and the pupil gets so desperate that he kills himself, and that completely shakes him to the core. And then you know what, I'm not gonna completely spoil the ending, but yeah, it's I feel like I should keep it a bit short here. This you should read this if you like Kafka. You are gonna enjoy this 100%. I can pretty much guarantee. Um, and the similarities continue outside of this novel too, because um, Hermann Ungar, he also, like Kafka, studied law, and and like Kafka, he also died really early on in life. I think he died when he was 36 or something, and Kafka died when he was 40. And so yeah, this novel and his other novel, The Maimed, those are really the only writings that we still have of him. I think he also wrote some other stuff, like some short novellas, and I think he wrote some plays and just some short stories and stuff. But that stuff, he never really ever became famous. So that stuff is extremely hard to find. And yeah, it's kind of tragic that we only, I would by this point consider him one of my favorite authors, and we only have like two like novels, like novellas. That's all. That's all there is. Um, yeah, which is also kind of fitting for the theme of his novels is his own life. Um, so yeah, astounding. I also finally read Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, and I almost rated this 5 stars. I will tell you, I don't really know if I like the ending yet. I think I have to think about it a little bit more. Um, Obviously, there's gonna be spoilers, so if you don't want the spoilers, then I'm gonna give you a timestamp where you can skip to. Um, but yeah, I feel like the way to read this book is to go in completely blind. So yeah, we have the protagonists are this married couple, Nick and Amy. They're like in their 30s, and initially they seem to have quite a nice romance story. We hear about how they met and how their romance built up, and then all of a sudden, seemingly out of nowhere, Amy goes missing. She's the eponymous Gone Girl, and yeah, we read her diary entries, and um, it seems like things were initially very nice, but then gradually Nick turned out to not be a very good husband, and we also get Nick's POV, and he immediately we notice he's like a liar. He in the ongoing police investigation, he keeps lying to the police for seemingly no reason, and yeah, he seems to be quite like the narcissist, and he had a troublesome life, but he always kind of got away with stuff, and he never was forced to really take accountability for his behavior. And yeah, he's very calculating and very not trusting anyone, and yeah, so he's an unreliable narrator. One of my favorite things in fiction, one of my favorite tropes. And yeah, he has this phone this extra phone that keeps going off, and he doesn't answer it, and we find out that he has an affair that is still going on, even after Amy's disappearance. And so yeah, there's a lot of publicity on their case on Amy's disappearance, and he over the course of time is like everybody thinks he murdered Amy. Basically, that's what's going on, and he's like super close to being arrested. And then we get the big plot twist, which last chance now to not get any spoilers. The big plot twist: Amy staged everything, which, to be honest, to me wasn't like too surprising, but it was definitely a quite big twist. And all the diary entries that we've been reading for like 300 pages, they were all fake. She staged them so that she could kind of frame her murder or her disappearance on Nick. And so I really like that as a means to create complexity in characters. Like 300 pages in, we notice that we don't actually know anything about this character of Amy because everything that has been presented to us was fake. And we learn about her. She might be the most spiteful person to ever exist. She also, in the past, framed other people. She framed one of her ex-boyfriends for rape, and she framed one of her friends for stalking, and got away with it both times. Um, and so she's the psychopath here. I initially thought Nick was a psychopath or a sociopath, but no, it's actually Amy. And yeah, so she's evil, basically. Um, and then, like, after everybody suspects Nick of murdering Amy, she all of a sudden comes back to him. She kills her ex-boyfriend that she's been staying with, who was kind of trying to hit on her. She kills him and frames him again for kidnapping her. And obviously the public believes her and they're reunited and it's so beautiful. But Nick is terrified because he knows that Amy staged everything. And she yeah, they kind of live together and they have to kind of pretend for a while that everything is fine. And Amy threatens him. She's like, if you divorce me, I'm gonna ruin your life even more than I already did. And I didn't even say that. She did the whole thing out of like jealousy and because he was cheating on her and because he's just a shitty person. Like he may be innocent in this case, but he's definitely like a shitty guy. And so we kind of have the most toxic codependent relationship ever because they both kind of can't really get out of this in any suitable way, especially because all eyes are on them after this big PR case. So Amy does the craziest thing ever. She impregnates herself with frozen sperm that they saved up in a fertility clinic because they were thinking about having children. So without ever sleeping together, Amy gets pregnant with Nick's child, which is insane. And when Nick learns that, he just completely gives up. That's like the ending that I was a bit conflicted about. He is completely one of the police officers he was still talking to because she kind of was on his side and she also knows that Amy framed him. She just has no way to prove it. And Nick is like, I'm dropping all charges, I'm dropping everything. That's just gonna be my life now. And that's kind of the end. And I was gonna give this book 5 stars, and then I don't know, the ending didn't really click with me. But I did talk about the ending with a friend of mine who couldn't remember the ending, and she said that it's a pretty good ending, and I think she's right. But it just wasn't quite how I imagined it to be. And I also wrote in my notes that like something that I really liked was, this whole thought that even the people who are the closest to you, like even your loved ones, even like the most intimate relationships that you have, they never get to experience your true dark side. I would call it, like the perverted, vulgar, animalistic, primal, like really dark, all your urges, all your deepest longings, that may be something that like these two characters definitely experienced for each other. They broke the taboo, so to speak. And so in a way they're closer. They know each other better than almost anyone else could ever. So yeah, I found that quite an interesting thought. And I think I'll stop talking about this book now and go into Journey by Moonlight by Antal, Szerb, translated by Peter Chipot. It's a new translation from quite recently, I think. This also starts out as a romance between married people, and it also goes downhill, kind of. So we have this Hungarian couple, Mihaly and Ersi, and they just got married, and they're on their honeymoon in Italy. That's kind of the setup that we get, and it immediately raises the question why they even got married, because they don't really seem particularly close. They don't really seem to know a whole lot about each other. And yeah, it's a bit confusing why they would even get married. And we go through all these characters from mainly Mihaly's past, but also, yeah, he's kind of more of a protagonist. Ersti is kind of is a second protagonist. So we talk about all these people, mainly Tamas, who used to be Mihaly's friend, and when they were quite young, they really got obsessed with the idea of death, especially their own death. So we got some Mishima similarities there, and they try to kill themselves together, and they fail. They both survive. And so yeah, and Tamas always keeps that fascination of his own death, and eventually he succeeds. The third time he tries it, he succeeds, so he's dead. And Mihaly never seemed to have gotten over that. He still thinks about his friend a lot. And he has a sister called Eva, which Mihaly also always had a huge crush on. And we discover that even though he's married now, he still kind of has a big crush on her. Also, we have a character called Erwin, which used to be kind of in their friend group in his youth, and he was kind of like, like a playboy, like a ladies' man, and like a cool cigarette smoking, sunglasses kind of guy. And he was born a Jew, and then he turned Catholic, and he joined a monastery and became like a monk, and I think maybe even he became the abbot, if I remember correctly. So we meet him again in the monastery, and Mihaly and Erwin have a talk later on. We have Janos, who also plays a bigger role later on in Ersi's story. And he's kind of like a bad guy. He's like a liar and a manipulator, and he always tries to like influence people. He's also a thief, a pickpocket. He's definitely not a good guy. And then we got, Eva herself. She also briefly appears, and she's just kind of like traveling around. I don't really know what her deal really is, but she's just also traveling around Italy and Europe. And then we have Zoltan, Ersi's first husband. She was married to him before she met Mihaly. And so yeah, they're in Italy. They travel around. Things are going like okay-ish. There seems to be some sort of issue, and then as they board the train to, I believe, to Rome, Mihaly gets off to at the train station to like get some coffee, and then as he almost misses his train, he gets on it, but he doesn't know that the wagons are getting separated. So the train that Ersi's on is going to Rome, but his train is going somewhere else. And this was written in the 30s, so there's no cell phones or anything like that, and they kind of just like lose each other. And Mihaly doesn't just try to go after her. He, for some reason, just kind of stays behind, and actually she's like making a post in the newspaper. She's like actively looking for him, and he just kind of wanders around a little bit. He starts an affair with an English woman. He meets a professor, and they have quite the interesting talks, and he asks different people for money because he runs out. He is sending a letter to his dad and pretending to be sick and bedridden. And yeah, he keeps meeting this professor who's also Hungarian, and he's like an history scholar, and they're also talking about Tamás and about this fascination of death. So and the professor describes dying as an erotic act, and he goes into this comparisons from mythology where you have the sirens and the satyrs who are kind of like the death demons. I don't really know a whole lot about that, but that's definitely an important plot point, like this death as an erotic act. And while Mihaly is hanging out with the professor, actually goes to Paris, and she meets this Persian rich gentleman, like this really like shady, mysterious figure that becomes a new romantic interest for her. And Janosch is also there, and he is kind of courting her. And then Zoltan comes back, and Zoltan texts Mihaly and is asking her to for divorce, and he offers him some money if he divorces Ashley. So actually really gets objectified by a lot of men who just basically want to get in her pants, and she's aware of that. And so she avoids Zoltan after that, and she eventually travels back to meet Mihaly. They actually, after like a couple weeks or something, they meet again, and then the roles kind of get reversed, because actually realizes that she doesn't really care about Mihaly. She was like ready to forgive him for what the fucking terrible thing, he just abandoned her in a foreign country basically, and she's like ready to get back to him, and they sleep together. They kind of, I found that part really beautiful. They kind of rediscover each other and each other's bodies, like for the second time, but it's all new and all different. And Mihaly discovered that he actually wants to be with Ershi, and he kind of falls in love with her again, but Ershi is no longer interested, and so she leaves, and she gets with the Persian guy, who is, I think he's just always called the Persian guy. I don't think he has a name. And so yeah, Mihaly is kind of heartbroken. He meets up with Eva, he's been trying to meet for a long time, and she actually just shows up in his room, and they talk about Tamás's death, because Eva was his sister, and she talks about how she kind of guided him through his suicide. That was the part where I decided to give this book 5 stars, and it was chillingly dark and disturbing and beautiful, because she describes it, and Tamás and her kind of were acting as lovers. They were like kissing and making out, even though they are siblings. So another big taboo break here. And then Mihaly asks Eva to do the same for him, because he decides he also again wants to attempt to kill himself. He has a death wish. And and he asks Eva to also like guide him through that, which is obviously quite disturbing and dark, but also I found it very, very beautiful. So then Mihaly gets invited to this random function that some prostitute invited him to, and he goes, and he gets really drunk, like by accident, and so these people, they're all strangers to him, and they seem to be like kind of shady in his perception. They take him to this room because he's too drunk to go home. They just let him sleep in a room, and he keeps waking up, and he's absolutely terrified. They think he thinks they're gonna steal from him and abuse him, and he thinks they're gonna murder him eventually. And so they don't actually end up doing anything. They're just nice people, and they just taking care of him. And so he misses his appointment, his suicide appointment with Eva. and they never meet again. If I write him a letter, it's like, oh, I'm leaving. You will never. Yeah, that was it. And she tells him, yeah, you don't have to act like Tamash. You have your own story and you're your own person, and you don't have to, even though you're still grieving him, you don't have to follow in his footsteps. And Mihaly, while he was making this paranoia experience of being drunk and thinking that that someone is out to kill him, he experiences the fear of death, which is very different to a death wish. And he discovers he doesn't actually want to die, and he's glad that he didn't kill himself. And and so that's kind of the end of the novel. And I thought it was mind-blowingly beautiful. Also, I didn't even say this. I got recommended this by an Hungarian acquaintance of mine. If I meet people from other countries, I usually just ask them like for a book recommendation. That's like one of the things I always ask, and she recommended this one to me. So you know who you are. Thank you very much. This is one of my favorite books I read this whole year by far. It's probably in the top 5 at least. So Journey by Moonlight. And so that was it. That's my top 5 favorite books from the month of May. And you watched all of this, so then thank you, and I'll see you soon in the next video.